Hello everyone, this is part 2. I would love to share with you a special experience I had, my mountain trekking journey. It was a simple trip, but every moment felt meaningful and refreshing. Let me take you along with me step by step. I started walking up slowly, with no rush at all. I wanted to enjoy every step of the journey. I roamed around the area for a while. I explored little trails that led into quiet corners. I found rocks, leaves that sparkled under the sun. There was silence, but it was a beautiful silence, full of natural sounds like leaves rustling and birds singing. After wandering around for some time, I found a perfect spot to rest. It was open and flat, with a few stones where I could sit. I thought, this is the place to make my little forest kitchen. But first I needed fire. So, I began to collect some sticks. I searched under dry trees and bushes for thin, dry branches that would burn easily. Slowly, I gathered enough sticks to make a small campfire. I bent down and picked up a few dry sticks, brushing off bits of dirt and moss. They felt rough and real in my hands, like nature offering me a small gift. There was something grounding about it, like I was stepping into a more primitive version of myself, connected to the way people lived long ago. As I gathered more, I noticed how silent the forest was, yet how alive it felt. Each stick I found gave me a little satisfaction, like I was slowly preparing for something meaningful. I wasn't just collecting wood, I was building a moment, a memory. After collecting enough dry sticks, I felt ready to begin my little mountain breakfast. I carried the bundle back to my chosen spot and arranged them carefully for the fire. The air was still cool, and my stomach was starting to rumble. I cleared the ground, made a small safe circle of stones, and started building the fire. The smell of burning wood filled the air, simple, earthy, and comforting. I opened my backpack and took out all the ingredients I had brought from home. Fresh vegetables, bread, cheese, and a little butter. Everything was neatly packed. I laid everything out and smiled, excited to make my sandwich in the middle of nature. I started cutting the vegetables carefully. The fresh smell of tomatoes filled the air. I sliced cucumbers thinly, chopped onions finely, and washed the lettuce leaves with clean water I carried in a bottle. Then, I laid everything out in front of me like a picnic chef. I sliced the tomato, and as I did, fresh juice started to drip out. It was so ripe and watery. The tomato was incredibly fresh, and I had to pour out some of the extra water from it. While cutting the tomato, I noticed how juicy it was, so I gently poured out the excess water. The tomato was so full of juice that it almost felt like I was holding a tiny water balloon. I placed the bread gently on the plate, setting the foundation for what I knew was going to be one of the most satisfying breakfasts I've had in a long time. The bread was soft and fresh, with that subtle aroma of wheat, the kind that makes you feel like home, no matter where you are. The edges were golden and slightly crisp, just the way I like it. I could feel the warmth of the fire. My little forest kitchen all set. Then came the vegetables. I had already sliced them with care earlier, fresh, crisp, and full of color. First, I laid down the thin slices of cucumber, overlapping them just slightly like soft green tiles. They added a cool, juicy layer. Next, the tomato slices. I had drained some of the excess water earlier, but they were still vibrant and full of life. Each slice was deep red, with little seeds tucked inside like nature's decoration. They made the sandwich feel instantly fresh and alive. On top of that, I placed thin rings of onion. Their gentle purple and white swirls looked almost too pretty to eat. The sharpness of the onion would balance the creaminess of the mayonnaise perfectly. Washed, dried, and carefully placed so they peeked out from the edges, giving the sandwich a nice crunch and a hint of that earthy, leafy smell that only comes from real, fresh greens. Finally, I reached for the second slice of bread and gently placed it on top, closing the sandwich with a soft press from my fingertips. I looked at it for a second. It was simple yet perfect. No restaurant could beat this feeling. Making something with your own hands, in the middle of nature, surrounded by nothing but the sound of wind and birds. Oh, the smell. As the cheese softened and the bread warmed, the scent filled the air. It was a mixture of toasted bread, creamy cheese, and the faint sweetness of the vegetables inside. It was mouth-watering, not just because of hunger, but because of the moment. Sitting by a fire on a mountain, holding a sandwich that I made from scratch with love and intention. It was more than food, it was an experience. I held the sandwich close, feeling its warmth in my hands. The cheese had started to ooze ever so slightly from the sides, making it look even more tempting. The bread had the perfect texture, soft in the middle with a lightly toasted crunch on the outside. I paused before the first bite, just to appreciate how something so simple could feel so special. In that moment, everything around me felt quiet and still. The mountain, the sky, the fire, and my sandwich. It all came together like a peaceful pause in time. And with a big smile, I finally took the first bite. After finishing the sandwich, I took a deep breath and felt so satisfied. But I didn't want to leave any mess behind. So, I began to clean the area. I gathered all the vegetable peels, wrappers, and any waste, and packed them neatly in a trash bag I had brought with me. Next, I focused on the fire. I poured water on it slowly, and made sure it was fully extinguished. I stirred the ashes with a stick, and poured water again to be sure. Leaving a burning fire in the forest is dangerous, so I was very careful. Once the fire was completely out, I spread the ashes to cool. Then, I looked around one last time to make sure everything was clean. I didn't want nature to suffer because of me. I believe if nature gives us peace, it's our duty to protect and respect it. The temple added a spiritual touch to the experience. After that, ready to go home, as I walked back down the trail, I kept thinking about how peaceful and refreshing this whole journey was. It wasn't just trekking, it was therapy. It reminded me that happiness comes from simple things: a quiet walk, a self-made meal, and a moment of gratitude. Please don't throw garbage on the mountain or anywhere in nature. Keep the place clean. Mountains are peaceful, sacred spaces, and they deserve our respect. Sadly, many people leave behind plastic wrappers, bottles, and waste without thinking twice. But every piece of trash harms the beauty, the wildlife, and the balance of nature. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel.